Spent. Nigga, where am I going? Drop the foe in my cup, now I'm floating. I can't feel a thing, to be real, I just go through the motions. Where am I going? Nigga, I'm in deep like the ocean. I've been in my bag, everybody around me, I'm ghosting. Where am I going? Drop the foe in my cup, now I'm floating. I can't feel a thing, to be real, I just go through the motions. Where am I going?
We are going to another episode of HardFoul Radio. This is the show that values time and puts God first. Appreciate everybody for joining me today. All right, so I want to make one thing very clear, and I know it's going to be the very popular thing today is let's shit on every team that lost. That's just outright going to be the popular decision. Let's shit on the Chargers for losing. Let's crap on the Eagles for losing. Let's crap on the Panthers. Like, listen, there's one team, in my opinion, specifically that you're going to look at and go, okay, a one and done was a bad season, objectively. I think we get a little too wrapped up, and I know all these guys make millions of dollars, and all these guys, the expectation every single year should be win Super Bowls, and there's only one team that has a great. I just personally, as a maybe call it naive or call it naive, right? It's a stance that you can have a good or great season without winning the Super Bowl. I truly believe that. I do. Sorry. I don't know what you want me to say. The teams that objectively had a bad season, we're going to get to here in a second. Let's go through all of the teams that lost and really ask yourself, did they have a terrible season because they lost their first playoff game? Let's start with the higher seeds that lost. The Jacksonville Jaguars are the 3 seed. They lost to the 6 seed Buffalo Bills. The Jaguars, who Trevor Lawrence finally looks like the quarterback they wanted out of Clemson. The Jaguars, who Travis Etienne finally looks like the guy, again, they wanted out of Clemson. 1,000-plus yard rusher, a franchise quarterback who went on an amazing heater, an amazing ride at the end of the season. A team that finally has its first legitimate head coach, maybe second legitimate head coach in the history of the franchise, Tom Coughlin. Everything is looking up for this team. The quarterback, the running back, the defense, the head coach. They just won 12 games. You're going to sit there and say, oh, but you missed your opportunity? Or they're not, I'm sorry, not that they missed the opportunity, because missed their opportunity is different. Or you would say they didn't have a great season. You want to say they missed an opportunity, that's valid. Because you are never guaranteed to get to this exact same spot. And so missing your opportunity is different, though, than having a great season. Jags fans have something to be excited for. This time a year ago, they were wondering if they spent $55 million on the wrong quarterback. That's no longer the questions they're going to be asking. Let's go to another team, the Los Angeles Chargers. You have your head coach. You've got your quarterback. You showed how close you are, even with all of these injuries. Both your tackles are out. Now, I think the Chargers are only in a slightly worse position because the Chargers are going to uniquely be screwed because of Pro Bowl voting. And Rashawn Slater, not Rashawn Slater, I'm sorry, but Joe Alt making a Pro Bowl, even though he only played 6 games, is actually mean they have to pay him more money, which is a little unique, and they do have a quarterback they're paying $50+ million a year to. But you got the right coach, you got the right quarterback. Yes, you had injuries, and you can argue that's the reason why they lost this game is because they could not protect. That's the reason why their season went the way it did. They just could not protect Justin Herbert once all of the injuries started stacking up. But are Charger fans going to look at this and go, man, we had such a crappy season? I don't believe so. The Carolina Panthers. Yeah, you can say just happy to be there. Literally. You didn't even finish over 500. You were under 500 for this season. You're playing the Rams. It's a close game. Everyone's thinking you're going to get killed. The odds makers think you're going to get killed. The fans think you're going to get killed. The experts think you're going to get killed. and you are legitimately in that game with the chance to win. Like 5 minutes to go, you are in that. You have a lead in that game. The Panthers, what was rudderless, directionless, should feel great about the direction they're going, especially, is it in a weaker division? Sure. But that's fine. You play your circumstances. So the Panthers should feel great about this year. They should not feel bad. They shouldn't wonder, oh my gosh, what are we going to do? And the Packers, again, the same with the Chargers, where it's like, you just got so injured by the end. What was your honest and realistic expectation? You were still in that game. You had a 21-6. Yes. Are you going to feel a little worse if you're the Packers because you blew that big lead? Fine. But again, not all one-and-done seasons. When losing that first playoff game, we've just made it like, oh, that's a horrible year. Oh, wow, what are they doing? Not all one-and-dones are horrible seasons. And I just refuse to believe that. Now, moving over to the teams that did have horrible seasons or failure of seasons, let's tell the difference. If you have an all-time great quarterback and you are the most you can do, all-time great quarterback or all-time great roster, and you get one and done, that you could chalk up to a failure of a season. You had a season that was considered a failure? The Kansas City Chiefs. You know, had a season that was considered a failure? The Baltimore Ravens. Why? Because you have all-time legendary quarterbacks, and you didn't even make the playoffs. You know who would have been a failure if they lost this week? The Bills and the Rams. Rams, all-time great roster, all-time great quarterback, all-time great head coach. You are Super Bowl or bust. Bills, I don't believe in your roster, and I'm going to pick you to lose this weekend for obvious reasons. But Josh Allen in a playoff field with no Mahomes, no Lamar Jackson, no Joe Burrow, even though I understand the people that push back on Joe Burrow being included in that, but Joe Burrow has beat Allen in the playoffs. You should win. And it will be an abject failure if you cannot win because you have an all-time great QB, and the Rams and Bills should feel like we should be in the Super Bowl. That should be the matchup. This is just being honest here. The team that lost the worst, because they are not only have, in my opinion, an all-time great roster, they have a very highly paid quarterback, and I think you're about to see a lot of roster changes as a result of not winning, is the Philadelphia Eagles. Jalen Hurts makes $50+ million. This offensive line not only is expensive, it's getting older, and it's not as dominant as it was a few years ago. This defense is great and young, but it's about to get paid. Jordan Davis needs to get paid. Jalen Carter's going to get paid here in another year. Like Quinyon Mitchell, who was great yesterday, he's going to have to get paid. So a lot of this roster is going to start getting torn apart because you just can't pay everybody per the rules of a salary cap sport. And you're going to lose A.J. Brown. And you could say maybe that's going to be a net positive because he just doesn't work on this team as far as a demeanor or an attitude or whatever. You just objectively, this is like the thing with whenever we talk about superstar primo wide receivers or diva wide receivers or guys that are viewed as distractions, the reality is you're better with them than without them from a talent perspective. Two of the three greatest receivers ever, Randy Moss and Terrell Owens. Yeah, were they a lot in a locker room? Yeah. Were you objectively better with them than without them? 1,000%, and it wasn't debatable. Not everybody's going to be Jerry Rice where they're just this put my head down, lunch pail kind of guy. They don't cause distractions. Like, receiver is just, they just become with those personalities. The Bengals are better with Jamar Chase. The Vikings are better with Justin Jefferson. And neither of those teams were good enough to make the playoffs in the first place. And those two guys have personalities. Those two guys you could call, if you want to, call them a diva or call them high maintenance. Their teams would not trade them whatsoever. Both were heavily and nicely paid. So you're going to lose A.J. Brown, which means now the reality of losing A.J. Brown, whether you want to say, again, net positive because of the locker room stuff, now Devontae Smith, can you be a number one wide receiver? Maybe the answer is yes. But it's going to look different because those coverages that get rolled over, that have been rolled over to A.J. Brown, those coverages that have been, those game plans that are A.J. Brown focused from the defensive side, that's now gone. Saquon Barkley, another year removed from 2,000 yards. No A.J. Brown, we can stack the box a little bit more. We can bring a safety down until we feel Devontae Smith can consistently beat us. This offensive line is not going to be as good. Again, I said before the playoffs started, Nick Sirianni, if it looks bad, and yesterday it looked bad, could you lose this job to John Harbaugh? The Eagles are the one franchise. The Eagles fire Super Bowl winning head coaches. They just do. And they fired Andy Reid, who got to a Super Bowl, multiple conference championship games, fired him. 2 of the 3 coaches they've had since Reid have won Super Bowls. Doug Peterson and Nick Sirianni have won Super Bowls. Doug Peterson was fired. And I don't think it's impossible to say, Nick Sirianni, you might be next. Especially with a guy like John Harbaugh, who came from Philadelphia and that Andy Reid coaching tree. And John Harbaugh, from all of his demands, which, if you believe the theoretical demand list that's out there, GM is one of the things he demands. But what if I just give you Howie Roseman? You can't hit much higher than Howie Roseman. In my opinion, still the best GM in football. It's getting a little closer if you want to go off these last 2 years' results. But Howie Roseman, overall, the roster that he's built. So Sirianni could get fired. Your O-line, you're going to have to start tearing apart. Again, they're older. You're about to lose your best receiver. Your quarterback still, that you're paying $50+ million to, struggles to complete passes in halves. That's the one team in the playoffs, in my opinion, that you could say abject failure. Because this roster is just never going to be this good again. Man, the NFL went 5 for 5, I think. Out of all the games that were played this weekend, like, every single game was great. We got comebacks. We got fourth quarter close games. We got games that were tight the entire way. Maybe the worst game, quote unquote, was Patriots-Chargers, because the Patriots just dominated that second half and the Chargers offense couldn't get anything going. But this was a great weekend of wild card football. We have Steelers-Texans tonight, and then the divisional round next week. Man, it was a good weekend to be an NFL fan. That's all I got to say. If you are someone like me who was used to drinking a ton of coffee to keep yourself energized, we have the replacement for you. Or if you're somebody that's into energy drinks, which, stop drinking bad energy drinks. It's a bunch of energy now, but you crash later. It's a bunch of sugar. It's a bunch of crap that's not good for you. Go to W, use HardFoul 10 at checkout. Again, you get energy now, no crash later. Multiple different flavors. It tastes good, which most energy drinks, if we're being honest, don't taste that great. Again, you get energy now, no crash later. Use HardFoul 10 at checkout when purchasing your W. This is HardFoul Radio, back momentarily. And we are back. This is HardFoul Radio. We're going to get into the 1 seed and start looking forward tomorrow. A lot of today is recapping the matchups that we just had. And so I want to make sure I stay on that. Chargers-Patriots was the night game. Obviously, New England was the 2 seed. And I think New England performed well. Now, you're going to say they didn't score a ton of points. They only had 6 points at the half. Drake May for his first playoff game. You could tell there was a little bit of, oh, this is different, but I think he got on by the end. I think New England overall for the first playoff game with a young team did what they were supposed to do. And Drake May didn't lose the game, and his defense, Mike Vrabel, played really well. Mike Vrabel did his part, which is what the coach, when you have a great coach, and I think Vrabel is, if he's not already there for you, has this playoff, if they go on a playoff run, he will ascend into that status. That's what you do when you have a young quarterback. You know that your quarterback might not necessarily be able to take you all the way from day one, so you got to be able to supplement the other things. This was very, for the obvious comparison, very Belichick-Brady. Brady early in his career needed those Belichick defenses to help him get through those early playoff games because he wasn't Tom yet. One day Drake May will be so great that he can just carry you. Yesterday obviously was not that day, and so Mike Vrabel picked him up where he needed to, and that all worked out, right? The Chargers, I have no, to the words of the great Pat Bowlen, I got no sympathy and I don't root for division rivals. But the Chargers, this is kind of unfortunate that I always think fans try to act smarter than they are, and we don't really understand everything that's going on. Where that looks bad for the Chargers and a team like the Eagles is they kind of lost the way we expected them to lose. The Chargers just could not, and New England does not have a great pass rush. This is why I don't root for division rivals. But if you had asked me who would I like Denver to play in the second round, it would have absolutely been the Chargers. Because that offensive line had no way of holding up. The New England pass rush is just okay. All season long, they've been just okay. And I don't want to take away from the defensive game plan they had for yesterday. But if the Chargers couldn't hold back them, being the Patriots, they would have gone to Denver the following week. What were they going to do against that pass rush? What were they going to do? Like, the Chargers lost the exact way we thought they were going to, which is your offensive line. And I get it. A lot of it is injuries. Like they should be better next year, theoretically, Rashawn Slater and Joe Alt. But it was missed opportunity is different than failure of a season. It was a missed opportunity because the Chiefs theoretically should be better next year. Denver is now finally losing the Russell Wilson dead part of their cap. And Bo Nix will be in year 3, and let's see how this playoff run, what he does, and where he stands coming into next season. Like, this was just outright a missed opportunity for the Chargers if you were trying to go far in a year where, quote unquote, the competition was less. But your O-line was so beat up, and you couldn't figure out how to still generate offense despite that. And let's just be honest about Justin Herbert. It's a little bit of the Peyton Manning feel of, yes, you are statistically an all-time great quarterback in the regular season. We now have 3 playoff games, one of which you lost an all-time lead and were the loser of an all-time comeback by the Jaguars. Another in which you threw 4 interceptions, and yesterday you were just objectively bad. And the first half of that game, the pass rush for New England wasn't that crazy. It eventually, the second half, they started, the New England pass rush really started to take over the game. But you're 0-3 in 6 years in the playoffs. You're going into year 7, no playoff wins. You haven't won the division. Yes, you throw for a lot of yards. Yes, you are tough as hell, this season proved. And yes, you are obviously otherworldly talented, but at some point, you got to be more than that if you're going to be one of these guys who commands $55 million. And Charger fans are going to hate this, but I've been honest. I've been objective in this regard. I said 3-4 weeks ago, I'm like, the way Denver's team is currently built, Bo should not be paid $50 million. Bo should get a Baker Mayfield type contract. I said Brock Purdy, who we're going to talk about him later. I said he should have taken a Baker Mayfield type contract. Now, I think I'm wrong on Brock now. I think he's proven we're going to get to him in HardRight, HardLeft. But if you're going to be $55 million a year, it can't just be a bunch of pretty numbers in the regular season. I need you to produce in the playoffs. You can't be 0-3 in a 6-year run. I can't have no playoff success heading into year 7. Like, I need something. You can't be objectively terrible in one of them, 4 interceptions, objectively bad, can't score a touchdown in another, and then you give up an all-time comeback. Like, that can't be your playoff resume. And it's like, oh yeah, well, Peyton did that. Yes, Peyton also, and I know there's inflation, and it's like Peyton was well compensated. Peyton A was making $50 million a year, and B, people killed Peyton Manning for this. And Peyton's the ultimate. I'm going to throw for more yards and more touchdowns. And just objectively, like, Herbert's not Manning, in my opinion. In year 6, Peyton Manning was the MVP of the league, and his first playoff game, he had a perfect passer rating. And he got to the AFC Championship game in year 6. And there's no, it's weird because the Brady of this generation is in Herbert's division, but it's not like he's losing to him in the playoffs. Manning was losing to the Patriots in the playoffs. He was losing to an all-time Ravens defense. Ray Lewis, Ed Reed. Like, Herbert is just, he's not winning his division because of Mahomes. Okay, that'd be valid, except you had year 2 Bo Nix and year 2 together Sean Payton, and they won the division. Like, Herbert can't just be a bunch of stats and yards and touchdowns. You objectively just, you got to be better. You got to be better. Moving on to one of my favorite parts of the show. Why would he say that? We have to discuss all Eagles fans everywhere. And we'll use LaShawn McCoy for the thumbnail because he's been on this all year. But something Shannon Sharp, I like Nightcap, and Shannon's an all-time great Bronco tight end. One of the best tight ends in NFL history. Don't accept in victory what you would not in defeat. Eagles fans and a lot of Eagles commentators and people in sports media discussing the Eagles we've just ignored and been totally wrong about how this team has been viewed the last year and a half. 2 years, they went to a Super Bowl. Here's the actual timeline of the Eagles. They go to a Super Bowl. They lose to the Chiefs. Jalen Hurts plays amazing. They then the next season start 10-1. Ironically, in that season, the only team they lost to was the Jets early on, and that was Zach Wilson, which may or may not be Zach Wilson's last NFL win. They then have this collapse, look bad in the playoffs against Tampa. And everybody goes, oh my gosh, what's going on with this team? They then rebound. They then have last season where they look shaky, kind of all regular season. There's issues still going on. But Saquon has a 2,000-yard season, which covers up a lot of issues. 2,000 yards will do that. Saquon this all-time season, the offensive line, but they don't look dominant. They're just a really good team. They were the 2 seed last year. So they weren't even the 1 seed. They weren't even theoretically start to finish the best team in the NFC. Then they go on this playoff run where they look dominant for 3 games. They beat the Packers. The Rams game was close. They dog-walked Washington, and then they dog-walked the Chiefs. And everybody used those 3 games as a reason to go, oh, this is one of the greatest teams ever. And the name value was there. And I've been on this all year. The name value was absolutely there for them. A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, Mailata and Johnson on the O-line, Saquon, Carter, Davis, Quinyon Mitchell, Cooper DeJean, who I don't know if people know, and the All-Pro voters, like, he's a safety that sometimes plays slot corner, but I guess we're going to give him slot corner All-Pro. Zach Bond had an amazing season coming over from North. Like, there were all of these amazing names. And the last thing we saw of them was dog walking the Chiefs and dog walking the Commanders. Like, oh my gosh, this team's amazing. So much so that we took that exact same feeling into this season and the entire season, even though there were issues. And there was no 2,000-yard season to cover up these issues. It was just, oh, well, you can't say anything because they're the defending champs. Oh, and now the defense is even better. But clearly, even though you still have 2,000-yard receivers, even though we also got to have a conversation with that someday, that a 1,000-yard receiver, a 1,000-yard rusher is no longer the same because it's only about 60 yards a game, and that's not high-end impact, especially if you're just barely crossing the 1,000-yard mark. Still had Saquon Barkley, who obviously was not what he was last year. The O-line wasn't quite as good as last year, and Lane Johnson got hurt towards the end of the season. And while this defense was great, it was gettable. Now, they had a last 6 weeks of the season. They were the number one defense, I think, in terms of points per game. End of the season on a heater defensively. But it just never quite felt right. But Eagles fans and Eagles people that were pro-Eagles just defended it with, well, we won the Super Bowl doing this last year. Eagles fans will hate this statement, and that's fine. The Eagles won the Super Bowl the same way Eli Manning Giants won Super Bowls. Now, they're more talented than the Eli Manning Giants, but they got on a heater, and they looked great at the right time of the season. Last year, this was not some team we looked at and went, oh my gosh, all-time legendary team. They're just too good not to lose. They could have lost the Rams game last year in the playoffs. That was the one close game they had. But because they beat Washington and they beat Kansas City so resoundingly, and they deserve it, we just said, oh, best team in the league, can't argue with them. They are what they are, like they're the defending champs. They have this great record. They just dominated the Super Bowl. They got hot at the right time, and they were dominant for 3 games. So don't color me the most shocked that their season ended the way that it did. Same we just talked about the Chargers. The Chargers season ended the way we all kind of looked around and went, yeah, that's how this team was supposed to lose. O-line couldn't block nobody at the end. The Eagles, inconsistent halves of football, at times struggled to complete a pass. Jalen Hurts was in these top 5 convos. This Eagles team that was in all-time greatest roster convos off of 3 games. And LaShawn McCoy and other Eagles defenders just kept saying, man, you can't tell us nothing. We're the champs. Oh, we already did this. You guys don't know. We already did this. Now, this same Eagles team, Kevin Patullo should be out of there. Nick Sirianni may be out of there. And who knows, maybe John Harbaugh gets this roster. That's my theory/opinion. And maybe they make a run back. But something was clearly broken. Inconsistent halves of football. Saquon was not Saquon. The O-line was not nearly as good as it was last year. This defense, while it was great, is going to get really, really expensive really, really fast. There were clear issues all season long that the fan base just decided to ignore. And the people in media discussing this team just decided to ignore. I started off the show. Not all one-and-done seasons are failures. But this Eagles season, objectively, was a failure. Because it never looked like even mid-season that they temporarily fixed the issue. The Chargers, at least, for all their O-line issues, it looked like, okay, they figured out a way to play with the bad O-line, and we're still able to score. The defense is playing as well as it could. The Eagles never, like I could have, and this is, I hate these kind of statements, but if the team looks like I could have coached it or you could have coached it because it was just, all right, guys, go out there and see what we can do. We already know what we're good at. We already know our flaws. When you're paying a head coach millions of dollars, that's not what you want it to look like. So for all the Eagles supporters in the media who just ignored all the issues all year long, that's how this season was supposed to end, when you ignore all these issues. One and done in the playoffs, and a roster that is about to have major overhaul, and a defense that's about to become really, really expensive. Let's talk the Bears. This was incredible. I don't know how long this can theoretically last, but this was absolutely incredible. The Bears are down 21-3 at half. And I said last week, this is the one game you cannot lose. It was to the Packers. This would have been not a failure of a season, but it would have felt like that from the fan base. Because Packers-Bears is a weird rivalry. The Packers have historically owned and dominated it. And it's not relatively close. And because the Bears have struggled on offense for so long in their franchise's history, they've seen Favre, they've seen Rodgers, and they've even seen Jordan Love win playoff games and be more successful in the postseason than the Bears post-1985. So there was a lot here that emotionally could have just wrecked a season for a fan base. And they're down 21-3. They then, and Caleb Williams, here's the thing. Caleb Williams is outright amazing. There's just no denying it. Now, is 58% accuracy, is 58% completion percentage, is that an issue? Obviously, because you saw it in the first half. Missed throws, he had the interception. He's just, as special as he was in that second half, and as special as he's been in games, 58% is an issue, and at some point, you kind of can see how their season's going to end. That 58% will kick them in the ass. But that second half was the kind of stuff that endears you to the sport, endears you to a fan base. Coming back and just absolutely ruining the Packers season. The throws that he made, we talk about this all the time. He can make throws. That throw on fourth down, this I don't think is hyperbolic. Maybe one of 5 or 6 guys ever who can make that throw. That situation, that pressure, postseason, division rival, that kind of division rival, who historically have just done nothing but kick your team's teeth in, and you come out and you play like that in the second half, erase the 21-3 lead. Yes, does the defense have issues? Obviously. Is 58% an issue? Obviously. But if you can't blow them out, Caleb Williams does something that all fan bases want, which is the hope that we got a chance. This game isn't over. What an incredible second half comeback by the Chicago Bears. And if you're a fan of the Bears, and we're going to have Will on later this week, what more can you say? You got to love your head coach. You got to love your quarterback. You won't love the defense. But what this team is, I always say the 2011 Broncos are one of my favorite teams all time to watch as a fan. And that's the Tebow year. And I've seen better teams, obviously. The 2012, culminating in from 2012 to 2015, the Broncos, were objectively better. Culminating in they had 2 Super Bowl appearances, they won a Super Bowl. Objectively, all better than the 2011 Broncos. But the 2011 Broncos were just special. They were fun to watch. And that's what this Bears team is. This is just a special team. Are they winning the Super Bowl? I said last week, I would be shocked. But are they absolutely capable of being a special team in the hierarchy of Chicago sports fans who think of how low Chicago sports fans had to feel down 21-3 at the half to the Green Bay Packers? And that feeling of incredible joy, the levels of just like that endorphin rush, by the time that game was over, I'm happy for Chicago fans. Y'all deserve this. Great game, amazing moment, amazing story. Are there issues? Obviously. But the issues right now for this week don't matter. 58% doesn't matter. Your defense being bad doesn't matter. Your young second-year quarterback and your first-year head coach beating your division rival Green Bay Packers on Wild Card Weekend, getting to host another playoff game in Chicago. That's what matters. This is the special team. This is HardFoul Radio. Back momentarily. And we are back. Thank you guys for tuning in. This is HardFoul Radio. So, something I've been on a bunch, and I'm going to talk about this more coming up on HardRight, HardLeft, because it's very 49ers dominated. The 49ers coaching staff is just incredible. Kyle Shanahan, Robert Saleh. It's going to be tough to get to where they need to. The 49ers are going to go back to Seattle this week, and the 49ers, despite all the injuries, and they lost George Kittle yesterday to a torn Achilles, it's tough. But the fact that they're here, man, this is Brock Purdy, Christian McCaffrey, and some duct tape. No Kittle, no Nick Bosa, no Fred Warner. They've lost. Brock Purdy only started half the games. It's just incredible what they are doing in San Francisco right now. And I don't think anyone can actually explain it correctly, because I don't know if any of us really know what's going on. Like how incredible this ride has been for the 49ers. Any other team in this situation, like at some point, you know they're going to lose, it feels like it, because they're just running out of bodies on the field. Like, they're starting their 4th, 5th, and 6th linebackers in a game. They have no pass rush just due to they're just running out of bodies. So they're running out of talented bodies. And yet, Kyle Shanahan, Robert Saleh, this coaching staff, they're walking into every single game going, I got a game plan. I said at the start of the playoffs, the teams that are the scariest are the teams that their coach can put together a great game plan. Do you want to have a great defense? Obviously. Do you want to have a great offense? Obviously. You want great quarterback play? Obviously. But none of that stuff will matter if your coach can't put together the kind of game plan that can help your team be successful in that moment. Football is so coaching dependent. And the game plan matters so much. So if your team and your coach just does not put together the right game plan, it's over. Your season will end. Objectively, it is that simple. And maybe that feels too simple for a lot of people, and I understand that feeling. But the game plans Shanahan's putting out, the game plan Saleh's putting out, this team, in order to keep winning the way that they've been, absolutely incredible. I said Shanahan's been my coach of the year since about week 6, week 7. And we'll see. Excuse me. We'll see if Warner returns, which they think there's a chance late in the playoffs. Bosa, there's no way. Kittle, obviously now no way because he just tore his. But like what this team is doing, what this coaching staff is doing, it is nothing less than incredible. So shout out to the 49ers, and I don't think he's going to win Coach of the Year right now. I think the betting odds is for Liam Cohen, which Liam had a great year in Jacksonville. We're going to get to him in a second. The 49ers coaching staff, though, as a whole, if you could have coaching staffs of the year, not just head coach of the year, I think now they have an assistant of the year award as well, but just overall coaching staff. How do you not pick San Francisco? Like, how do you not pick San Francisco? Let's go over to Liam Cohen here for a second, because there is a moment that I think people are just being weird about, and that is in the presser for the Jaguars, there was a reporter, I wish I knew her name, I apologize, who basically congratulated Liam Cohen on an awesome year of, hey, look, what you did this year, getting this team to where they are, all the progress, like, you should not hold your head down, you should feel great. And there is a handful of people who just decided to say, no, this is bad, this is not what reporters are supposed to do. Shut the fuck up, man. Shut the fuck up. To the people that are killing her, just shut up. At the end of the day, and I know there's a ton of money, and people feel that with a ton of money comes the I don't even know what the word would be, but just the right to just be as vile and critical. Being critical, analyzing games, commentary on games, and commentary that may seem negative because of the player performance, all that stuff's valid. But at the end of the day, this is sports. I say this all the time, and this just makes me think of it even more. I talk about three things. I talk about sports, I talk about anime, and I talk about music. Three things that objectively aren't that serious. They're just not. This isn't your politics. This isn't real life issues. This isn't corruption or these are entertainment. And at the end of the day, ask yourself, Jaguar fans, are you more entertained now than you were at this time last year? Are you more excited now than at this time last year? Are you happier with your team and the product your team put out there more this time now than last year? Because if the answers are yes, and they should be, that's all she was pointing out. Hey, man, we haven't had a ton of great football here in Jacksonville. Thank you so much for bringing great football back to Jacksonville. We love it. We are excited about the future for the first time in a long time. It's sports. It's entertainment. Let it be that. It's okay. I promise you. You'll make it. You'll survive. Shout out to her and congrats on the Jaguars for an incredible season. This is HardFoul Radio, Hour 2 coming up. And it is hour 2 of HardFoul Radio. Appreciate everybody for being in here today. So, hour 2, it is a Monday, so that means HardRight, HardLeft, what we got the most wrong, what we got the most correct, and they are both 49er themed this week. So let's start with HardRight, that being the head coach. Look, man, Kyle Shanahan is just brilliant. We talked about this a little bit at the end of last hour. This is my coach of the year. And it shows you could make an argument everywhere but quarterback. The Eagles are better. Running back would be more of a toss-up, but you could argue Saquon's better than CMC, but you could probably argue that both ways. Let's say running back's the tie and quarterback the Niners have. Everywhere else is the Eagles. The overall offensive line, even as they have not been as dominant they were in the past, the defense considerably more, receivers not even a question, and tight end, Kittle went out relatively early in that game. And the Niners and Kyle Shanahan just continue to do this. Sorry about that. One of the only things you can really hold against Kyle Shanahan in his coaching discography or his career is that yes, he obviously is an assistant. He was a part of the 28-3 lead with Atlanta. As a head coach, he has not been able to win the Super Bowl. He lost to the Chiefs twice, which, fun fact, losing to the Chiefs and Mahomes historically will look fine. It'll age well. It's not like, you're losing to one-time teams or these weird stories or weird teams. And secondly, it's his ability to come back in games. Is that there's felt like, and statistically it's proven, that when his team gets down, it just seems like it's hard for him to come back. Yesterday, I think he started to expel the comeback part of this resume. Now, do I think they're going to be able to get all the way to the Super Bowl to fix the other part? I'd be shocked. But that doesn't take away from the coaching job that he has exhibited this year. He might be the one head coach, and this is saying something, and I want to be very clear when I say this. I'm going to prop up one of his players here in a second. He might be the one head coach where it's truly, the system is so good, the players can be interchangeable. You could have CMC. You could have, who did they have the running back last year? Foster, who had a couple 100-yard games while CMC was out. We know what this run game can do, and it derives. I watched the Elway doc last week. It's very similar to what his dad did, where Denver became famous under Mike Shanahan of anybody can run for 1,000 yards. Anybody can run for 1,000 yards. Man, would Denver love a 1,000-yard rusher right now. But that's another story for another day. Anyone can run for 1,000 yards under Mike Shanahan's scheme. So they didn't pay a ton of money for running backs. Hell, they even traded Clinton Portis, who was a great running back, especially immediately coming into the league, and traded him away because they felt like, oh, we can do this with damn near anybody. And is it obviously elevated when you have better players? Of course. Of course. Multiple guys had 1,000-yard running seasons for Denver. Not everybody was Clinton Portis or Terrell Davis. Multiple guys had their own personal career years. They did not have 2,000-yard seasons or the kind of impact Portis had early on. What they did was they were able to get into this system and immediately be productive because the system was that good. And that's what Shanahan is doing. No, I don't have, Brandon Ayuk and Deebo Samuel. When they were overly talented and they had Ayuk and Deebo Samuel and Kittle was in his prime and Trent Williams is closer to his prime and CMC, they were getting to Super Bowls. Objectively. And they had their defense. Warner, Hufanga, Greenlaw, Bosa. Like when they had HardRight, when they had those guys, objectively, yeah, they were getting to Super Bowls because talent matters in the NFL. But even without that same level of talent, Juwan Jennings is throwing touchdowns, catching touchdowns. We talked about Foster last year being able to step in for CMC, have those 100-yard games. not totally losing your tight end production even when Kittle is out. Your quarterback, you've done this with Jimmy G and now Brock Purdy, who we're going to get into in a second. This defense, and I understand he's mostly responsible for the offense, but even defensively being able to understand, hey, like when him and Salah are making game plans, those same kind of concepts and ideas that are playerless, not player dependent, where you can still survive without a Bosa, you can still survive without a Warner, or they lost Hufanga Greenlaw not because of injury, but due to free agency. Like, the reality is, like, Shanahan can do this. He was doing it with Mac Jones, you guys. And I know Mac is probably going to get a contract, and he's going to be one of those guys that we look at and go, oh, could he revive his career the same way that a Daniel Jones did or a Sam Darnold did? I'm not quite there on Mac Jones, and honestly, I would take Malik Willis over Mac Jones. But it shows you what Shanahan can do with damn near anybody. C.J. Beathard, through his first 5 or 6 career starts, when he had him at quarterback, he was the most yards ever for a guy in his first handful of starts. Because Shanahan can his offense, it's just not player dependent. And how many coaches ever can you say that for? Let alone currently. How many coaches ever can you say that for? What Shanahan has done is objectively incredible. The Eagles are better pass rushers, better interior defensive linemen, better at linebacker, better in the secondary, better on the offensive line as a whole, better at receiver. Want to say running back's a toss-up? Fine. Quarterback, I would give the edge to Purdy, but you're seeing forget the coach of the year has kind of turned into an insult. Like, low-key, it's an insult of, we thought you were going to be really, really bad. You turned out to be really, really good. So we're going to view that and go, oh, okay, well, you weren't ass, so we're going to give you the award. No one's had to do more with less and still be this insanely productive than Kyle Shanahan. Am I going to pick them to beat Seattle? No. Like, if you ask me right this second, Monday morning, 5:07 a.m., no. Would I be horribly shocked if they did? Also no. Because what he's doing is just downright incredible. And we should not take this level of coaching performance and take it for granted. We shouldn't. Moving on to HardLeft, also 49er-centric. Brock Purdy, I have said some things about you. I said the 49ers should have drafted another quarterback because I feel so highly on Shanahan's system that I just talked about being non-player specific. And I'm like, oh, I think anybody could work here. I have said you are a product of prime Trent Williams, Deebo Samuels, Brandon Ayuk, George Kittle, a great defense, CMC. I didn't give you a ton of credit. I was wrong. Not just because of how he played yesterday, but how he's played the second half of this regular season. And it's not a stats thing, because yesterday he threw 2 interceptions. Quinyon Mitchell picked him off twice. But from the second play of the game, where it's the beautiful touch pass over the linebacker before the safety can get there, and he made multiple of those yesterday. Those are high-level throws. Those are the kind of throws that when you're playing the video game, whether Madden or NCAA, and you can lift the stick up just a little bit to try to get a little bit of air, or you're trying to directionally throw a guy, those are the hardest throws in the game to make. And most guys, if their accuracy's not good, just can't make them. Purdy's been making a lot of these kind of throws. The reality is, I was just wrong on Purdy. He is, somebody who I thought was just along for the ride, has absolutely proven that, yes, was he, and two things can be true, and this is probably where my opinion just needed to change sooner than it did. When you had Trent Williams, Ayuk, Deebo, CMC, the defense, Would he have been the 9th or 10th best player on that team? Yeah, he would have been. And maybe even lower than that if you want to really compare. Like, it's weird because positional value. But if you want to go just how good of a football player, he might have even been like 14th or 15th. But the reality is he continued to get better. He's continued to make himself available for the most part. And he has continued to get better and better and better to where now he is the guy with no Kittle, with no Debo, with no Ayuk. Some games with no Trent Williams. Some games where CMC, he's there, but he's not really there. He has proven now, hey, you guys carried me at a point in my career when I was not good enough to lead this team yet, when I was still a young player. Now it's my turn. Now it's my turn. And I just said, Shanahan system, I feel like almost anyone could be productive in it. But not everybody could be productive and win like this. Not everybody could sit there and go, oh yeah, clearly this team, like, you could put a lot of guys at quarterback on this team. They would either miss the playoffs or be one and done. Mac Jones, despite all the conversations had earlier in the year, could not elevate this team the way Purdy has elevated this team. He couldn't. Objectively, he couldn't. The throws, and it's a style. Again, it's not a big statistical thing. Because statistically, you're going to look back on this game and go, well, Purdy wasn't, like, crazy in this game. It wasn't like, he was out there throwing 400 yards, 4 touchdowns, some kind of masterclass. But when you see the elevation of the roster, the elevation of the performance, again, everybody's out on this team. Go down the list. All the guys that are gone. And who's there, who's making throws. Juwan Jennings, Purdy, he's throwing to anyone and everyone. Yes. Is CMC the focal point of the offense? Yeah. But that's not a bad thing. I think the world of Lamar Jackson. I think Lamar Jackson coming into the season was the second best quarterback in football. If you wanted to argue, he's now third because Allen has passed him. At this exact moment, I wouldn't argue with you. But there's been games with as great as I think Lamar Jackson is that I'm like, oh, yeah, you give the ball to Derrick Henry, obviously. Because there is times and there is game plans where you need your running back to be the focal point of your offense. Purdy at one point was a little carried. He had all pros everywhere. That is no longer the case, and Purdy deserves the respect of being a legitimate franchise quarterback. And I was wrong. Objectively, I was just wrong. And I can eat that. So, shout out to Brock Purdy. You do have a great head coach still, but if you're San Francisco going forward, this is where you want to be for the next 10 years. I got my head coach. I got my quarterback. I'll figure everything else out. This is HardFoul Radio, back momentarily. So the Bills and Josh Allen come back and beat the Jaguars. So the Bills had to do this. Both teams, ironically, that had to, who I would have said, who would have joined the list with Philadelphia to me as far as failures for a one and done in the playoffs, the Bills and the Rams both had to come back. Now, I think the Bills did it against a overall team that was better than them in the Jaguars. I think the Rams did it in a team that was inferior to them. We're going to get to them in a second. Josh Allen is incredible. Josh Allen is absolutely incredible. Josh Allen is Cam Newton fully realized, which is crazy to think about if you just remember how great Cam was at his peak. But Josh is even better at the crazy ultra human stuff that Cam was amazing at. Josh is incredible. That being said, while they avoided disaster, this is what makes the Bills feel susceptible. And the Jaguars were the better team yesterday. I think before the game they were the better team, and I think even during the game you could argue they were the better team. And if the Bills don't find a way to support Allen better, the Bills will lose next week. And we'll get to the Denver side of it more tomorrow. I'm going to do Denver and Seattle more tomorrow. They're the one seeds obviously didn't play this weekend. But the Bills got to be better around Josh Allen. Not just for this playoff run, but just going forward, they got to be better. The receivers were okay. Like, the tight end room is really good, and the offensive line I still think is really good despite the numbers they put up this year. They obviously give a bunch more sacks. And James Cook is good. This defense is very gettable, and I think that showed yesterday. The offense is, while James Cook did lead the league in rushing, the offense still somehow feels very, very, very Josh Allen dependent. Meaning if Josh is not having a great game or Josh is not, out there striking the fear of what inside the defense, they just don't feel dynamic on offense. They don't feel even consistent at times. And so if they're going into next week and Denver's offense is consistent, now it's an if, because Sean Payton, it's what is Sean's game plan going to be against the Bills defense? But what Josh is going to have to deal with against a defense in Denver, this is going to be a tough matchup for them. I know they're starting as the favorites because NFL betting, we just can't help ourselves if a Josh Allen versus Bo Nix is not a real conversation. And so because of that, the Bills are going to be favored. And I get it. Do I agree with it? No, of course not. But do I get it? Yeah. Josh is incredible. Incredible, man. But you got to be more than just your quarterback being incredible. And Sean McDermott, you won, and again, you avoided the worst possible outcome. But every single week, and it feels like it's going to get even tougher and more pressure the farther you go along, you got to win. And if you don't win, it's going to feel like a failure of a season, whether you lose in the first round, the second round, or the conference championship game. Losing in the Super Bowl might be the only way we go, okay, it's not a terrible season. But the Bills, who are probably going to be everybody's favorite to go to the Super Bowl, because it's Denver, New England, the Bills, and we'll see who wins tonight, Steelers, Texans. Josh is clearly the best quarterback. Without a doubt. And I know Drake May stands and believers feel like, oh, well, he's played like the MVP, so he should be in that convo. Josh Allen's the best quarterback in the NFL right now. But I did not walk away from that game feeling like, oh, the Bills are incredible. The Bills are clearly going to be the team that represents the AFC. And you're not just running into a team now that I feel like is better, because I felt like the Jags were better. You're also running into coaching staff that I just think is better than Jacksonville. And I know Jacksonville beat Denver. And I gave Jacksonville a ton of credit for that. I said Jacksonville could absolutely win a Super Bowl. They didn't, but it doesn't take away my opinion or my thoughts of they could have won one. Sean Payton objectively is better than Liam Cohen. Vance Joseph is objectively better than the Jaguars DC. And dealing with both on a bye week, when they've had time to prepare for you, they've had extra reps, they've had extra practice, and now they get to lock into the things that you do well. Now, there's pressure on Denver, too. Denver's whole season, I don't think it will be a failure because of my viewpoint, but it'll feel like a failure if you get one and done in the playoffs as the 1 seed. The same for Seattle. To have a great regular season, to get home field advantage, and then to not win even a single playoff game is going to feel like a letdown. But again, we'll fit more on Denver tomorrow. What the Bills need is not only Josh Allen's superhuman-like performance, they need James Cook to not just run for yards, but feel like impactful yards. And this defense has to put together its best stretch of the season. That's what they need to do to keep advancing in the playoffs. But great win yesterday. They avoided a heartbreak. They avoided what would have been by far the worst loss of the second worst loss of Wild Card Weekend. So congrats to Josh Allen. Congrats to the Buffalo Bills. The team that avoided what would have been the objectively worst loss, and it was my pick to make it to the Super Bowl out of the NFC. They are still my pick because I'm not changing. But the Rams, oh boy, there were some issues, man. Let's talk about it. The Rams need to make the Super Bowl because who knows how many more years of Matthew Stafford they have. And Puka is about to get paid. So this team, Puka's about to get paid. Jared Verse is about to get paid. There's some guys that it's like, this is not going to be the same team in 2 years. So they need to win it now. And when you play like that against the Panthers, what the Panthers really exposed is the Rams' clearest and biggest weakness, which is they just don't invest a lot in the cornerback market, and their corners, the Panthers receivers, Tet and Leggett, were just torching them. And I'm not a big Bryce Young believer. Bryce is fine. Bryce played really well on Saturday. I'd be nervous about signing Bryce long term. Again, if you want to take Baker Mayfield contract, I'm willing to sign almost anyone who's competent. But if you're looking for that $40, $50 million a year, I'd be scared to give it to Bryce Young. What they do have, but the Rams, that was just not a great showing. And the Rams being that close to a team that they're just objectively better than, there's some problems there. And this is why also that game against Seattle was so damning. If you're the 1 seed and you're playing at home, it's a much different feel than you are the 5 seed. Now we got Seattle and the Niners playing, and you're about to go play Chicago. So the LA-based team that needs to throw the ball is going to play in cold-ass Chicago. Stafford, who's been a dome quarterback, and I know he played the Bears every single year when he was in Detroit, but he was a dome quarterback by nature. He played in Georgia when he was a collegiate athlete, and now playing in sunny LA. I'm just going to take the human element of you don't play in a ton of cold spaces. So going to Chicago, is that passing game going to be as dynamic? Is that defense going to be as good? Playing in an environment that you have to, we just saw with this Bears team, you have to blow them out. You don't blow them out, you're not going to win. Because when it comes time for the second half of these games, and some of this is Ben Johnson's play calling, some of this is Caleb Williams' dynamic ability as an athlete and as a talent later in the game as the game is unfolding, it's going to be a toss-up of who's the better quarterback in the fourth quarter. Stafford's the better quarterback overall, but when we get to the fourth quarter and Caleb is running around and he's only down a touchdown or 10 points and he feels like, man, we can snatch this game, and you're playing that game in Chicago instead of LA because of not being able to beat Seattle and claim the 1 seed. And here's the other thing too. Stafford who went the majority of the season being extremely efficient in terms of touchdowns and interceptions, the last 5 weeks, that hasn't been the case. We're starting to see this offense and Matthew Stafford turn the ball over more. Now, I don't know if that's pressing. I don't know if that is trying to win the MVP, so he's trying to fit certain throws. I don't know if that's just people scheming up against Sean McVay better because he's been running this. If you've been really paying attention to it, he's running this 13 personnel basically the second half of the season, and now maybe teams just after 6, 7, 8 games of game footage are starting to catch up and understand what's going on. But this team is turning the ball over more. They're not as great defensively as they were at the beginning of the first half of the season. So turnovers, the defense isn't playing as well. You're not playing at home. Again, this is going to be one of those games. It's weird because I'm probably going to, off my initial thought process and reaction, I would probably pick Rams and Seattle to win next week. But I would not be shocked in the slightest if we had a Bears-Niners NFC Championship game. I wouldn't. This is the thing about the Bears is you're at home. You've been a dynamic second half and dynamic fourth quarter team. Talent-wise, you probably got to feel your quarterback. Again, Stafford is better as things currently stand, but talent-wise, you got to feel like Caleb's in the class. Caleb's got a chance to be what Stafford is now. And that first half is going to say a lot. Do the Rams come out and can they put a commanding lead against the Bears? And then the start of the second half, really, that's the Rams need to put out a commanding lead. And then that third quarter, you need one really good big drive. You need that 13-14 play, crush them, get up 28-3, 28-10, whatever the score is, to really make Chicago feel like, okay, we can't come back and win this game. Because if you give Chicago any sort of life, any sort of chance, they have shown they're going to come back and have a chance to beat you. So, again, the Rams are my pick to start the season. I was obviously very wrong in the AFC. I chose the Ravens, but you live and you learn. That would have been a horrible loss with the Rams, and I was not overly impressed for as much credit as I want to give Sean McVay and Stafford and being able to win that game in the end. And Puka Nacua was incredible. Devontae Adams, you could tell he was back. Maybe he'll look even better in his second game back. Who knows? But that was just those two teams, the Bills and the Rams, avoided abject disaster on Wild Card Weekend. Let's see what they do game 2 in the divisional round. This is HardFoul Radio, back momentarily. And we are back to close it out here today on HardFoul Radio. Appreciate those of you guys who join the live stream. We are live on YouTube and Twitter every morning, 4 to 6 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. Appreciate you guys. And appreciate you guys if you're just listening to this on the podcast, Apple, Spotify, wherever you get your podcast. Appreciate you guys as well. So I've been sitting on this take, and I like revisiting it. At least once a week at this point, because the evolution of it matters to me, because I don't want to just give this away. I think it absolutely has to be earned, and I think we're in the process of seeing it earned. The greatest quarterback draft classes ever. So 83 and 04 to me are undeniable. 83 is Elway, Marino, and Jim Kelly. They got to 10 Super Bowls. Now, are they 2-8 in those 10 Super Bowls? Yeah, but, it's life. 04, Rivers, Big Ben, Eli, 4 Super Bowl titles between them. They got to 5, right? Ben lost 1, so they got to 5. And statistically, the most dominant passing class of all time by a wide margin. Rivers obviously didn't get to a Super Bowl, but threw for a ton of yards. Him and Big Ben are top 10 all time in yards, and I think Eli is top 15. So statistically, the greatest passing class ever. 2020 was definitely there. Now 2020 kind of taking a little bit of a hit. 2020 is Burrow, Herbert, Hurts, Love. I'm missing one guy. I apologize. Tua also 2020. Yeah, Tua is also 2020. So obviously, Tua doesn't look so great right now. Hurts Hurts has a Super Bowl. He's been to 2, but doesn't look great at this exact moment. Burrow, a bunch of injuries, has missed the playoffs more than he's made them. Herbert 0-3 in the playoffs, but truly, 4 franchise quarterbacks. Tua got signed. This is the most paid class of quarterbacks ever. The one that I always forget, and Tony reminds me, is 2018. Lamar, Baker, Josh Allen. Maybe two of the 3 best quarterbacks currently in the NFL. And Baker's had a hell of a resurgence in Tampa, even if this season ended disappointing. Those are all timers. Three MVPs out of that class. Statistically is going to end up as one of the greatest ever. 2024 is building its case, and we are another week closer. If the Broncos beat the Bills, I believe that will happen. If the Patriots beat whoever wins Steelers, Texans, I believe that will happen. And the Bears beat, who are the Bears playing? The Bears, we have Seahawks, Niners, so the Bears are playing the Rams. The Bears beat the Rams. We will have 3 second-year quarterbacks in the conference championship. This is coming off a season where a rookie from this class, in Jaden Daniels, also got to the conference championship. 4 conference championships appearances in the first 2 years of a class. A guy in Drake May who's going to finish top 2 in MVP. And a guy in Bo Nix and Caleb Williams. Bo Nix broke a almost decade-long playoff drought streak in Denver. And Caleb has already set the franchise record for passing yards for the Bears. This is in the making of an all-time quarterback class. And everybody's a little different. Not everyone's the prettiest. Drake right now, if you were to say, okay, who's the best two-way quarterback or most mobile quarterback? You got that in Jaden Daniels. The best pure pocket passer. You got that in Drake May. The special elite playmaking, Caleb Williams. And you have, even though everybody wants to say he's the worst, the most consistent, productive from start to finish in Bo Nix. tied Russell Wilson for the most wins in the first 2 years of a quarterback's career. And if we get this scenario, the Bears in the conference championship, the Broncos and Patriots in the conference championship, the next result is top 2 MVP finish, 4 conference championship appearances, and somebody has to go to the Super Bowl, whether it's the Broncos or Patriots. So this class will have a Super Bowl appearance, have a top 2 MVP finish, multiple conference championships, NFL records, franchise records. We'll have 4 definitive franchise quarterbacks. And who knows? The Vikings finished 9-8. They might not have truly given up on J.J. McCarthy. The Falcons, I think Michael Penix is a fine player. I think my issue right now with Michael Penix is I'm just genuinely nervous his body can't sustain this anymore, and that his biggest downfall, unfortunately, is just going to be too many injuries piling up, and that's unfortunate, but that's just reality as well. If you are consistently injured playing a violent physical sport of football, that's just the reality. But if JJ even turns into a good quarterback and the Vikings get back in contention, do we have 5 franchise quarterbacks from one class? Remember how much it was ripped that there's no way 6 quarterbacks can go in the first round. We are just way overvaluing the position. There's just not 6 good quarterbacks. Look, there's 2 guys this year, Fernando Mendoza and Dante Moore. And a lot of people would say they're not as good as Cam Ward, who came out last year. These guys might be the first 2 picks in this year's draft. They're not as good as Cam Ward coming out. And Cam Ward was considered to be the best of a weaker class of quarterbacks. And this draft class, going all the way back to 2024, has the potential to have multiple conference championships, a Super Bowl appearance, a top 2 MVP finish, franchise records, breaking streaks, playoff droughts. Like, again, it's tough to compare 04 and 83 because those careers are completed and finished. Rivers, Manning, and Ben all have over 50,000 plus passing yards. Elway, Kelly, and Marino have the 10 Super Bowls. It's going to be really, really tough to catch up to that. I think 83 is still the best class of all time as far as quarterbacks, because 10 Super Bowls is insane when you think about it for a class. It's also insane you then put into that context of Brady, of who went to 11. Brady's not normal. Okay, look, Brady's not a normal person. But this class that was heavily maligned, there was Caleb, the generational prospect, and then it felt like, well, Daniels is an injury risk, and Drake's got all the tools, but we just don't know. And McCarthy wasn't Michigan-based, and Penix wasn't just the offense in college, and Bo Nix, well, he's not even a third-round draft pick. I remember I was there. I remember. But we got to start looking at this and go, is this actually an all-time class? And the direction they are heading, I don't think you have a choice but to say it is trending towards all-time class. Could this all blow up and all 3 of them lose this weekend and all 3 of them play bad? Yeah, it could. And that's to say, I'm kind of reserving this take. Just putting it out there, you know, you put on the grill, you're not even put on the grill. You're just marinating it at this moment. You're making sure you get all your flavors, making sure you get all your seasonings. You're marinating this take. But if this turns out to be what it has the potential to be, we are going to look back at the 2024 draft class and go, wow, this is one of the best ever. Again, it's 24. It's 2020, even though in 2020 is starting to unravel. We just said, Burrow, he's now missing the playoffs more than he's making them. Jalen Hurts, he is now struggling. Regular season had a bad regular season, had a bad postseason. Herbert hasn't won a playoff game. Tua no longer going to be the Dolphins quarterback. These all take time to develop and process, and these are not just definitive. Boom, this is what the 20 class doesn't look as great as it has been in years. The 2018 class, again, Allen and Lamar do a lot of heavy lifting. Baker, what has been great. Let's see what Baker looks like next year. And then obviously 83 and 04, they're already done. But this class is absolutely holding its weight 2 years into their career. Do you need to have more than 2 years to be considered an all-time great class? Obviously. But are they on the right path? 1,000%. 1,000%. Oh, man. Hey, appreciate everybody that's been in here this morning. Appreciate anyone who is going to the YouTube channel, leaving likes, leaving comments. Anyone going to listen to the podcast, Apple, Spotify, wherever you get it, wherever you listen to your podcast. Appreciate Dubby for sponsoring another episode.